every time I do something hard, like it feels good, and then you're like, okay, what's next? Like,
Hmm.
and I guess like a drug or something, you build up a tolerance to it, and you need more and more to have the same effect. And so you go from being happy running up a hill just outside the city in Edinburgh, where I live, for example, and then next thing you know, to get that same feeling, you're
Hmm.
running up Mont Blanc. So none of it was ever planned. It feels all very natural. I just listen to my body and do whatever my body wants to do. And
Those who are living a life of freedom have optimized themselves and their lives in pursuit of one thing: choice. They've created the financial, geographical, and time freedom to do what they want when they want to. But they've also created freedom from their internal limitations, their story, their biology, and their character. In this podcast, The Freedom Project, it is my attempt to shortcut your learning curve to having total freedom in your life so you can go and do more cool shit. I'm going to bring you deep dives into some of the most inspiring adventure athletes and business owners in the world. I'm also going to give you the key concepts of my coaching process to adventurepreneurs so you can start applying that to your life today. So here is another episode of The Freedom Project. What could possibly possess a man to run the fastest known time from the base of the valley to the top of Mont Blanc and back again? The thrill of adventure, the unknown, and the chance to test oneself. Iain Innes spent years making his way into professional ski racing, but eventually he realised this wasn't just his journey and took a step back from his lifelong goal. Without this structure, Iain entered the unknown. Yet he found his way through embracing adventure, discovering mountaineering and mountain exploration, and pursuing what was authentic to him. Iain seeks freedom in all its guises, and in this episode you're going to discover how Iain trains for these insane challenges without a training program to follow, the thrill of going solo and going unsupported, how to handle difficult transition moments in life, and how to satiate your desire for adventure when times are uncertain. Iain is full of life, full of adventure, and I just know you're going to love this episode. And it makes me, just recording this, having this conversation, made me want to get out and have an adventure right now. He's a great guest, a great person to follow, and I really hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to the show, man. It's great to have you on board. Let's start with what on earth possessed you to go from Les Houches to the top of Mont Blanc and back in the quickest time possible?
that was a very good question. I've been to Chamonix last summer. Done lots of climbing, rock stuff, mountaineering. I didn't actually ski on that trip, but I've got a whole variety of rock climbing experience out there. But I didn't go up Mont Blanc, and I don't know. When I left at the end, I thought that's a shame that I didn't do that. And obviously, then I had 10 months until I was next able to go to Chamonix in summer. And I guess during that 10 months, I spent a lot of time thinking, I should have done that, and I better go and do it this time. And then I always liked this idea of doing it in one push from the valley floor. Most people, I guess it's most commonly done in 2 days. People would get up to the refuges, at 3,000 meters or whatever, spend the night there. It gives them some acclimatization, allows them to split the climb in two, and then in the morning, second morning, get up early, summit, and get all the way down. But huts are expensive, they're hard to book, and it wasn't really the style that I wanted to do it in. I had this idea in my head of doing it from the valley floor, which isn't uncommon. Lots of other people have done that before. But yeah, it was a cool project. And as soon as I got out to Chamonix, actually, we saw Hilary Girardi, who's an American trail runner based out there. She just set a new fastest known time from Chamonix Church straight up. Well, I guess you would describe that as the north face. It's not really a north face, but north facing. She went straight up the shortest route through there. With it being my first project of that style, I didn't want to do that route. There was more risk of ending up in a crevasse. It was much more crevasse glacier. It wasn't as popular as a route. There wasn't as many people, and I wanted to do it in solo, unsupported style. And the only way that I was comfortable doing that at the time was going up what's called the normal routes, the Goutte route. Generally, people take a train for the first 1,000 meters, then they hike another 1,000 meters or so to the huts, stay in one of the huts, and then obviously do it the next day. Whereas I started from the church in Les Houches, which is at the bottom of the Goûter route, and climbed 4,000 meters elevation gain all the way to the top, and then all the way back down again. And I always wanted to do it, like I said, in fast and light style and solo unsupported. But the FKT wasn't really in my mind at all. The supported record had just been broken by a Scandinavian runner, a guy called Petter Engdahl, about 10 days before, and he set a really fast time. I think he did 5 hours 51, something like that. So I knew I wasn't going to break any records. But then the more I went, or the more time passed, the more I realized I was going fairly quickly. I managed to reach the summit in 4 hours 40, something like that, and then absolutely hammered down. I mean, I lost 4,000 meters, or went down 4,000 meters in, I think, like 2 hours 15 minutes or something. So my total time was 6:54, just over an hour behind Petter. But obviously he'd done it with somebody else, a slightly different style. I did the whole thing on my own, and I don't know, it's quite cool. Petter's a professional athlete, and I don't think I'm quite there yet. I'm just a guy that looked at the mountain and thought, right, I want to go and do that, and in the purest style possible, which is on your own, unsupported, and starting at the bottom and finishing back at the bottom.
Yeah, it's also a way that I imagine sucks in terms of like the discomfort going both uphill and downhill. I imagine there's a fair amount of discomfort in that.
Yeah, there is. But I also, I mean, that was the experience I was after. I think, for something to feel rewarding, it's got to be challenging. If it was easy, then, a lot of people, or I wouldn't enjoy doing things that are easy. You need some element of risk or challenge or some kind of hardship for it to.
Where does
really
that come from?
good.
That kind of desire for doing difficult things?
I mean, I guess some of it's human nature.
But you personally,
and then,
like, what?
For me personally,
yeah, like
every time I do something hard, like it feels good, and then you're like, okay, what's next? Like, and I guess you like a drug or something, you build up a tolerance to it, and you need more and more to have the same effect. And so you go from being happy running up a hill just outside the city in Edinburgh, where I live, for example, and then next thing you know, to get that same feeling, you're running up Mont Blanc. So none of it was ever planned. It feels all very natural. I just listen to my body and do whatever my body wants to do, and I obviously felt an attraction towards that mountain. And
was there anyone that set that example for you growing up?
I mean, so my parents introduced me to skiing. My mum's always been a runner, but I think a lot of it maybe comes from social media as well. I think people talk a lot of shit about social media, but since stopping ski racing, a lot of the things that I'm doing and discovering now are either inspired by things I've seen on social media or just from researching things on the internet. The year of COVID was maybe when I really started pushing into what you might call ski mountaineering, or I guess it's just ski touring at the end of the day, but a level up maybe. Once you start to involve ropes and these kind of things, that's when it gets interesting. And you spend, I mean, my whole life as a kid, people tell you, you can't do that. That area is not safe. That's dangerous. If people tell you all the things that you can't do, and then at some point you realize, I don't know, you see a guy on the internet doing it, and you're like, hang on, that is possible. There's that French dude based out in Chamonix. He's just abseiled into a couloir, and then he's flown out on a paraglider at the end. And I don't know, these are all the things that people tell you can't do, and they're too dangerous. And suddenly realize you can actually do whatever you want.
Yeah, and that's the benefit of social media, right? When you get inspired by it. I suppose there's also the risk of you see something and go like, I could do that. And then you end up in an awful situation. But okay, so you had your parents who introduced you to skiing. Was there anyone who like had that thirst for adventure? Like that kind of, I want to go out and do not just kind of exciting stuff, but new stuff?
I don't know where exactly that came from. I think, like I said, just naturally that happened where I just got curious and you know, like now, for example, if I'm working somewhere, I've just been in South America for 2 months, and first thing I do when I get somewhere, I'll see a mountain. I'm like, fuck, I need to do that. Or I'll see, there's a ridge that looks like it's runnable, but I'm not sure. I don't know. I just have to go and find out. I can't just sit there and wonder. The curiosity just gets the better of me.
Yeah, it's that spirit of adventure. I don't know whether it's like, I can only speak for guys, but that's because I hear about guys talking about it the whole time. But it seems like inbuilt. It seems like there's something in us that just goes like, I like to look at something massive and pointy and go like, I want to stand on top of that. I want to run up it. I want to challenge that. And it's like, I don't know, how's that feel for you? Like that kind of excitement around it?
I think for me, it's always the best bit is like when you're not sure if you can do it and then you do it. And I guess a lot of things, maybe you're quite confident going into them, but with the mountains, there's just so much uncertainty. You never really know what's going to happen. You never really know how it's going to go or how long it's going to take you. And yeah, I guess the bigger a challenge it is, the more interesting it becomes, the more uncertainty there is when you actually get it done. And you're like, hell yeah, that was sick.
Yeah, you're right. It's not necessarily danger, but it's uncertainty. It's like, I want to go out on an adventure, on a mission to encounter something different.
And even like, let's just say it's a simple ski tour. You're going to complete the ski tour. So there's you can be 99% sure that you're going to complete the thing and you're going to survive. But there's still, you don't know how the snow conditions are going to be. You don't know if you're going to get to ski the exact line that you wanted to ski. You don't know who you're going to meet. It's all these things. Like the only way to experience all of this is to go out and do it. You can't just think about these things. And that's what makes you grow at the end of the day, going out and, I don't know, experiencing new snow types or witnessing an avalanche or bumping into two French guys at the top of the line or whatever. There's so many different things that can happen and all of them are interesting. So, yeah.
What was the ambition when you said, like, I want to go up to Mont Blanc, come back? Like, what were you wanting from that?
I guess I wanted to, I just wanted to go up Mont Blanc just because it's the tallest mountain in Europe. And I thought, oh, that looks cool. And it's obviously got this hype around it because of it. But also, the more running I've been doing, the more it was also about the physical challenge. And there basically isn't anywhere else in Europe that you can climb 4,000 meters uninterrupted. From the very first step, I don't think there's even like 3 or 4 meters of descent on the way up. The way the trails are, actually that's a lie. There's maybe 1 or 2 bits once you're on the glacier at the top where it rolls over and you maybe descend 20, 30 meters. But it's basically 4,000 meters of pure ascent, and there's not really anywhere else you can find that. So,
what's your training like for that?
So I run a lot. I must run maybe 6 days a week at the minute.
And what kind of distance?
I must average 50k a week. I think when I've got time and when I'm not working, that'll be up closer to 100k a week. But and then maybe if work's busy, it'll drop to 30 or 40k a week. But I really just listen to my body. So I don't have a program or a schedule or anything like that. I just wake up and do what my body wants to do. And so, clearly listening to my body works because when I'm at work, for example, and I'm tired out from work things, I'm only able to run 30, 40k a week. But then like when I've got a week off, just naturally my body, I'll feel good for a big run. And then the next day I'll still feel good for another big run. And then the next day again. And it's not easy, but like it feels right running up to 100 kilometers in a week. That's what my body wants to do. And then, like I said, in a work week, my body just isn't up for that. I think if I've got a busy week at work and I try and push on and pay attention to the numbers too much, I just end up exhausted. And then when I've got my week off, I'm too tired to do anything then.
That must really differ from the approach to like training to be a ski racer. And like definitely. These are my sets and reps. This is the training program for today. Like this is when this has to happen. Like how's that? Firstly, like talk about how different that is, and then I want to ask you a few more questions about
that. That's hugely different. Like the last year of racing I did when I was 2021, was the most serious. I had support from Scottish Institute of Sport. I was able to go and train, I don't know, 3 or 4 days a week at this national training centre. It was amazing, but it was pretty much just, you've got your program, you've got your coach, they'll tell you what you're doing each day. And I mean, there's some give or take if you're tired, but generally you just stick to the program. And I mean, from a scientific point of view, that definitely gets results. But I would say I'm a better, fitter, healthier, stronger athlete now than I ever have been. And currently don't have any programs or anything like that. I'm definitely curious, if I can get up and down Mont Blanc in the time that I did with no training program or no schedule, just by going off feeling. I wonder what I could do if I was back on a program. I guess that's the curiosity thing again, wondering what if I could do that, what would happen? But I'm just slightly cautious. I loved ski racing, but at the end, I didn't love it as much as I should have. And I wonder if some of that was because, you've got to go on camp on these dates, you've got to train X, Y, Z, you've got to do this cardio session, you've got to lift that much. And I don't think I'm someone that's ever dealt particularly well with authority. And I wonder if maybe that's why I didn't enjoy it as much at the end as I might. Everything I do right now, I absolutely love it and wouldn't change anything. So that's why I'm maybe nervous to return to a structured program or having a coach.
Where does that authority come from when you're training for ski racing?
Well, I guess because, your coaches or your personal trainers in the gym, they're experts at their job. They do know what's best, and they will provide you with the best possible program, and everything they're telling you is absolutely right. But maybe you just don't want to do that one day, or
yeah, especially when you're like, how old are you when you're going through like the majority of that? It's like early 20s, late teens.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it was serious from a young age, but I'd say from like 17 to 21. I guess those are my kind of 4 last years of racing. It was my life at that point, and the plan was to be a professional skier. And so that these guys have their best interest at heart. And if they tell you, you don't have to follow their program, but if they tell you to follow the program, it's because it's the right thing to do. But maybe I just realized I didn't want to live in that way or operate in that style.
That's also like the peak time in your life where you just think, oh, fuck off, I'm going to do what I want to do. Like, I just like, exactly. You're kind of exploring, you want adventure. And if you're sticking by structure, yeah, there's a huge amount of benefit to it. But is it the most beneficial thing for you as a human?
Yeah, I was definitely that kid that would get told off for powder skiing when we're supposed to be training GS, or, like, for example, when they'd give you zone 2 sessions and you've got to stay below, I don't know, 130 or 140 heart rate. And I felt good on that day. So I just went and rode hard, or I was chasing Strava segments or doing something silly. That was, I guess that's the Iain that we're seeing now, but there wasn't so much of that back then. Generally, I would stick to what I was supposed to do and stick to the programs and train when I needed to train.
Yeah, part of me is the coach part makes me think like you had so much structure and rigidity there. Mm-hmm. And now you've gone like, okay, let's explore, let's make up for lost time. Let's kind of find out like the more authentic part of me. And now it's like a kind of, and eventually there'll probably be like some sort of combo of like, okay, this is my rough structure. This is kind of the kind of the skeleton of it. But eventually I'm going to push out and find that exploration as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does training now look like? Is like exploratory? It's kind of just kind of going out for runs when you feel like it, or is there any kind of structure there at all?
No structure, but like I said, I think my body's quite good at telling me what it needs, and naturally there's days where I feel good, so I'll go and run faster and do more hills, or your heart rate just creeps up because you're having fun and you feel like running fast. And then there's days when you're tired and I can feel it immediately and I'll end up running slower. And I would never really I don't like to think of my runs as being like this is a zone 4 run, that's a zone 2 run, but it works that way. I end up having slow runs with lower heart rates, and then runs where I'm just naturally pushing harder and going faster. So you end up with something that you probably end up doing similar style of sessions to someone that has a program, but it's not programmed. It's just me listening to my body and doing whatever feels right.
Yeah. Going back to ski racing, how did you first get into it?
Started skiing at Helland. I think I first skied on a family holiday when I was 2. At some point as a child, the instructors at Helland suggested, you should do a bit of racing. And then we lived in England for a few years and we joined a race club there, and we did some race camps on snow with them. And like anything, it just grew arms and legs. It wasn't necessarily ever the plan of my parents that I'd become a ski racer, but if the instructors and coaches are like, oh, you should try this, you should try that, and naturally you just go from one thing to the other, and next thing you know, you're doing a full ski season in the Alps. And
what's it like kind of pursuing being a professional snow athlete in a country that notoriously doesn't get that much snow?
Not easy. You should definitely you want to ask some of the current athletes that question. The state of British skiing at the minute isn't great. There's an incredible lack of funding. I probably shouldn't get sucked into to talking about
get into politics, mate.
Yeah, there's definitely some politics there. But yeah, long story short, it's not easy, and you really have to fund yourself, find your own sponsors, because the governing body is not going to help you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so the only thing that I've witnessed is, like, as you know, I know Billy Major kind of fairly well, and like, I've seen his development, but like his situation seemed like the only way to like become one of the only ways to really nail it and to have everything going for you is for your family to be British, but to move out to France and to have that kind of, you've got the resources there, you've got the snow there, you've got like the training facilities there, you've got the coaches there. It must be a constant struggle for someone like you who's based in Edinburgh to like, I'm going to make that work for me.
Yeah, you're competing against the best in the world, which are, the French, the Swiss, the Austrians, and these are all kids that grew up in ski resorts. They've had really good grassroots structures, so local clubs that provide training, I don't know, every day of the week. There's ski schools, as in like schools where you can go and do your studies, but you also get to ski half the week, and obviously we don't have that in the UK. So I think actually it's amazing, that team that you talked about, where Billy is, there's Billy, Laurie, and Dave. I mean, there's Charlie Raposa as well. We've got a few Brits right now. It's amazing that they are all still going and they are all performing at top 30 World Cup level. It's really impressive when you look at what they're able to do, considering they've not had the same opportunities that Austrians, French, Swiss, what they've had.
Absolutely. It's kind of that British mentality. There's this explorer that I'm obsessed with, Bill Tillman, and he used to just like get in a boat and refuse any kind of technology. So he'd be, I want to go climb, get a first ascent in Greenland. Like, he'll put some ads in a paper, and then he'd like go looking for these kind of people. You want to come along? We're not going to have any kind of, we're going to have any technology, and we're just going to set off and try and do this. And he'd be like navigating using a sextant and all this kind of stuff. And he'd frequently lose people off the back of the boat. And he'd almost every single journey, he'd almost die. And it was so good to see. We're reading his book about it in his biography, but it's like that British mentality to doing difficult stuff. It's like, I'll figure this out. Like, where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you must see a fair amount of that in pursuing a sport like you did. Yeah,
for sure. Some people, maybe some people are even too sure of themselves, and they should read the writing on the wall and focus on something else. Within British skiing, there's plenty of people that've got more money than sense. Let's just put it that way.
I bet. So, what was if you don't mind sharing this, we can go into it, and if you want to cut it out, we can always cut it out. What was the sequence of events that led you to say, actually, this isn't for me anymore?
So I was ski racing for the bulk of my career. I was ski racing with a French group called Rx'd, based in the Three Valleys. It was, as far as ski racing goes, it was cost effective. It was cheaper than all of the British programs, for example. That's British private academies. And then maybe 2 or 3 years before I stopped, this new British national team kind of resurfaced. For years, there was no British team, but this Europa Cup group started to develop, and each year I'd had the opportunity to join, but I didn't have full faith in it, and I thought Rx'd, this French group, was better for me, and so I stayed there for a few more years, and eventually I felt like I'd outgrown that, and I thought, maybe it's time to take a chance and join the national team. There was a really strong group of athletes there the same year as me, but the staffing wasn't anything impressive at all, and I did this year, and it wasn't the year that I'd hoped for. I mean, from a personal point of view, I had my best season. I ended up with good points in the three disciplines that I was seriously competing in. It went well from that point of view, but the support from the staff and the coaching team just wasn't up to scratch, and I realized there's absolutely no way these guys are going to get me to the Olympics. I didn't see it happening, and I definitely could have skied for a few more years. But when I was trying to compete against French, Swiss, Austrians, you need a really strong support team, and that support team, as far as I could tell, didn't exist. If I'd outgrown the French program I was with, and then the national team program wasn't suitable either, I ran out of options. So I decided to leave the national team. I hadn't decided to stop skiing at the end of the season. I was still planning to ski another season. I left the national team, and I couldn't find anywhere that provided a setup appropriate for me. With Laurie and Billy, it's a little bit different because they were slalom skiers, but I was never a slalom skier, and there wasn't anything for me. And it was about halfway through the summer after that last season that I realized, I think I'm out of options here. I don't really know what to do. And it was only then that I started to think, well, maybe it's time to move on to something else. And it took me a while to make that decision, but eventually I kind of took the gamble and said, right, that's it. No more ski racing. It's time to figure out what's next. And I had no idea what was next. I had no plan. I hadn't thought about it in advance. So it took me, I guess, a couple of years to figure that out.
That must have been an incredibly daunting decision to go, I'm going for this big change in direction.
It was. And I was 21. I wasn't as mature then as I am now. So I had absolutely no idea what was going to happen. Had no plan, and kind of just had to take what was in front of me and do what I could with it. And quickly I was offered a job coaching by someone who'd coached me as a kid, a group called ATC, and ended up coaching for the best part of 2 years with them. Mostly had under 16s, under 14s, went to all the British races out in the Alps. And then going into my third year out of racing, I'd planned to do something similar, a bit more coaching. But this guy, Charlie Raposo, gave me a call. He's still racing, and it was totally out of the blue. He just said, my ski technician's changing jobs, or he's changing careers. Do you want to be my ski tech? And obviously I knew how to do skis from when I was racing myself, but I had never worked as a ski technician before and didn't have any sort of qualifications or anything like that. But immediately knew it was an opportunity. If I didn't do it then, no one was going to ask me the following year if I wanted to be a ski tech. I was only becoming further and further away from elite racing the more time I spent just working with kids. So it was a one-time offer, and took a chance, did it, ended up staying with him for a year and a half. It was brilliant, travelled all over the world, went to various World Cups, met loads of people, and I wouldn't have had that job if I hadn't raced, and the jobs that I get now I wouldn't have had if I didn't take that job. So everything's kind of connected in a way.
Just a quick favour to ask. If you love the show and you think it may help someone else in the world, then head to wherever you listen to The Freedom Project and leave a 5-star review, and maybe even share it with some friends. It really does help me, and it helps the show too. I can continue to get fantastic guests on the show, it reaches more people, and it makes me feel great too. So I would be enormously grateful if you could leave a 5-star review and share any episodes of the podcast that you love. Yeah. It seems like there's this pull that you go through, or you can go through, when you leave something like that, where you get pulled towards like normality, like a standard existence of like, I'll just get like a standard 9 to 5 job, and I will stop traveling around the world and stop making the mountains kind of my thing. How did you feel that?
I did, and I avoided it at absolutely all costs. I don't think I could ever allow that to happen to myself. And I'm just not happy unless I'm outdoors, unless I'm in the mountains, unless I'm doing these things that I've talked about, unless I'm I don't know, listening to my curiosity and going and skiing that peak or climbing or running that mountain, whatever. I just have to do these things. They're not negotiable for me.
Is that kind of what was, I don't know, driving you or pulling you towards a certain direction when in that 3-year period where you didn't really have, like, when you left ski racing, and you're like, okay, I don't know what to do? Was it like kind of, well, I know I don't want to go this way, so I'm gonna fuck that off and go this way?
Yeah. I had no desire whatsoever to apply for anything that you consider a normal job. There's plenty of normal jobs on offer in the city at home, but not once did I consider that to be an option. It was always about continuing to work on skis, on snow. I would definitely like to work in more than just ski racing. If I could work in climbing and do more stuff with running as well, I 100% would. But obviously with the experience that I have, both as a racer and now as a ski technician or coach, the experience I have in ski racing is way more. It's clearly my strengths from a professional point of view, and so all the work I get ends up being there. I would definitely like to diversify that and be able to work more in climbing or mountaineering. Obviously, I'll do some part-time work now for Black Diamond, which is a big step in that direction, which is cool. But I definitely want to spend more times in the bigger mountains and not just on race slopes. For the same reason, I guess that's another one of the reasons why I stopped racing, is I wanted to see more than just race slopes. And that still applies. Like, I don't just want to coach and stand on coach's corner giving feedback to people about courses or tuning people's skis. I want to be in the bigger mountains, and eventually I'd like to be fully qualified mountain guide. I think you had Tom Grant on your podcast, I look at people like that and think that's how I want to spend my life. I'd like to be able to work in the mountains, but also meet lots of new people every day and share my own experience with people. Man,
that sounds like the path. It's like, if you can still pay like respect or still keep part of that history where you've like, okay, this is what I've done, this is what I know, but then like, so you root yourself in that, but then also go toward the exciting, the thing that really captivates your attention, the thing that's like, this is the thing that I think about the whole time. That's the magic. I'm sure there's some sort of blend there. And the thing is, if that's not a clear road, then that's what the perfect path to walk is. There's a Joseph Campbell quote of like, if the path ahead of you is clear, you're on the wrong path. And that's what we're looking for here. It's like, can you find your own way in that? Like, can you especially like do something that's really unique to you?
Exactly. And so that involves a lot of just making it up as you go along.
Yeah, exactly. And going wrong.
Yeah, exactly. I have no idea what I'm doing half the time. And, half the things, half the like climbing or skiing techniques, particularly anything in backcountry, or, there's lots of rope work with climbing. So many of these things I've just learned off the internet. Like, I'm just, I don't know, maybe that's what the new generation does, but I feel like a lot of the things I've managed to figure out without proper instruction. And that just proves, you can basically do anything you want. Like that Mont Blanc project was so special for me. I mean, it's not technically a difficult mountain, but it was challenging, and it was just the purest thing for me to do. And it was, yeah, it was real challenging, and it was just me. I didn't, yeah, so unsupported. It was so simple, but so rewarding.
Yeah, I bet. How did it feel when you completed that loop? When you got back to the church and you're like, "That's me done." I'm guessing physically fucked, but
yeah, my feet were in bits, and I was just lying on the floor, lying on the floor, laughing. I actually cried a little bit, which is kind of ridiculous, but it was an important project to me, and it was the kind of first big project of its kind for me. So it was special, and it had been an idea in my head for a long time. So when I'd finally done it, and it was never about the FKT. It was always just about doing it in the best style possible for me, which was fast and light and alone, and it all went to plan. The forecast was, the weather was as forecasted. The conditions were right. I took the right equipment. I took enough equipment, but not too much equipment. Everything just went. It went perfectly, and it was exactly the experience I was after. So after that, I still had another 10 days in Chamonix, and
how'd you top that?
Well, yeah, I didn't. I just relaxed and drank beer with friends and did some easy rock climbing, did some easy runs. I was playing around with my camera a lot, but like I really didn't do anything. I mean, even remotely big after that. I was satisfied, and I guess physically my body was tired for a while afterwards. It took 2 or 3 weeks to recover from it. But I was happy just cruising up easy routes and hanging out with friends and doing everything a little bit slower paced than I had for the first 5 weeks or so of my trip.
It's interesting you mentioned that kind of emotional release at the end, because like I always get that whenever I like top out a mountain or summit something, or I'm like do something that is like, it's only ever with like a big mountain. It never happens with like a really tough sport pitch or something like that. I never get like that feeling, or like not even at the end of like a mega powder run. There's something about like completing a journey where you're like, that took every bit of me. Like I remember the first like proper mountaineering summit I hit, and I was like, oh, like I'm fighting back the tears like big style here, because it is like there's something about it.
Well, that's like a bit like we were talking about at the start. Like you need a certain amount of suffering for it to be good. If it was easy, if it was just a single pitch sport route, or if it was, a half-hour run or whatever, it's not going to feel as good. If you suffered for 6 or 7 hours, I mean, it's not pure suffering every single moment, but if you've worked hard for 6 or 7 hours, and it's been, hard work for 6 or 7 hours, even with all the good views and all the type 1 fun, with all that type 2 fun as well and all the hard bits, that's what makes it feel really good.
What was the most type 2 fun bit of that experience?
The last hour of the descent, because then, I guess I was descending quite quickly, and I knew what Petra's time was. And at some point, maybe as I was passing the Gute hut or something like that, I thought, I wonder if I can get within an hour of him. Like, this guy's a pro athlete. If I could do that, that would be really cool. And obviously I ended up being an hour and 4 minutes slower than him. But just because the time was so close, and like I was trying to calculate in my head how many meters I had to descend, and I would watch the watch and see, it's just taken me 15 minutes to descend 500 meters, and that means I've got 1,500 meters to go, and how much time is that going to take? And so I was like calculating. It was so close to being within an hour of him. It was just a made up goal. Like I'd never planned anything advanced, but it was just as I was running, I was thinking about this, and I just started running faster and faster. And if you look at the heart rate graphs, for example, from the data on the bottom section, as the descent goes on, my heart rate just gets higher and higher and higher. Like as I'm closer and closer to the finish, by the end of it, I mean, I was just absolutely hammering down. I guess the last kilometer maybe is on tarmac through Les Houches to get to the church. And at that point, my feet were just pounding on the tarmac, and I had massive blisters, on the kind of ball of your heel. The whole thing, the skin had started to move. So I mean, there was blisters like this size on both heels. It felt horrible. It felt like the skin was being ripped off or something like every step. But I just knew I was nearly done, and I just spent 6 hours putting effort in. What's another 5 minutes? Like, you might as well just push it till the absolute end.
Yeah, there's something about that state. There's something about that's so fucking good. Of just like what this is, especially when you're doing something by yourself. Like I did a 55k ultra in Snowdonia, and like it was a kind of a self-structured thing with a friend that I managed to convince to come along to do that with me. And there's like the last 5k, it was basically like 1,000 meters of descent in about 250, 300 meters of like lateral travel, and it was just like savage. It was just destroying us the whole time. And after like after 50 odd k, but it was so good. Like that feel, like laughing on the way down, just like this sucks, but it's great. Then you get some experience like my time with the Marines, and you're just like that felt different. That was just more type 3 fun. It's still like it's still dubious whether that was enjoyable or not.
Yeah, I hear you.
Cool. So what's next? What's the objectives for you, dude?
What's next? I'm not sure. I don't have a solid answer. I want to ski lots this winter. I'd like to spend more time skiing in the Chamonix Valley because I've not actually skied there very much. I'd like to ski things that are steeper, bigger, more exposed than I've done before. I think I'm definitely ready to ski some bigger lines than what I've already done. And then next summer, I'd like a similar project, and then I've not figured out what that is yet. And it's definitely not all about FKTs. It's about doing things in that really pure, simple style that I've talked about, unsupported, solo. I've not been up the Matterhorn yet. I'd like to go up the Matterhorn. If I could do that solo, unsupported, from Zermatt in one push in a day, that would be really cool. There's a bit more logistics there because it's a more technical route, and I mean, going up Mont Blanc, you can pass people or overtake people anywhere. Going up the Hornley Ridge on the Matterhorn is not as easy to overtake people, and so figuring out what time of day you'd want to do that to avoid any traffic, avoid any queues. Because I mean, I won't be taking any records there, but I'd still want to do it as fast as possible for me. And the last thing I'd want is to be 3.5 hours in and then get to like a bottleneck or something, and there's like a bunch of people waiting to abseil and they won't let you climb around them or whatever, and you've got to be polite in these situations. So it's just figuring out how to avoid that, and maybe just doing more. I mean, that's another obvious classic, but there's loads of smaller, less well-known mountains that I'd like to do in that style. I think doing things that most people would do in 2 days, trying to squeeze it into a day, that feels good for me. So more of that kind of style of mountaineering, basically.
You have to be super creative now to do firsts of anything. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Do you know, I think his name's Will Sim, who paraglides upshot and catches the thermals and then skis down. Like that looks like such a fun way to access mountains.
Was he in that film, A New Way Up? I can't remember.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Anyone listening, go and watch that. Great film. I've recommended that to so many people. I've watched it twice. That's really cool. I've had my eye on paragliding for a while now. I'd kind of half-assed said that I wanted to do it this summer, but didn't really find time, and I had more than enough fun this summer without it. But I really want to commit to doing that in spring. Obviously take a course, learn how to paraglide, get set up. Because, you know, in winter you get to climb up things and then you get to ski down. In summer you get to climb up things and you have to climb back down again, and that's not always fun. So why not add another tool to the toolbox, another skill and skill set, and being able to fly would just be amazing. I mean, imagine going up Mont Blanc in 4 hours 40 minutes, whatever it was I did, but then you don't have to think about descending afterwards. You get your wing out and you fly all the way back down. It just opens up so many possibilities. You can use it with skiing. You know, people always say, particularly in the Chamonix Valley, to be careful following ski tracks because you don't know if they've just got to the bottom of the line and it cliffs out and then they've flown off. And so it just opens so many possibilities being able to fly off something. I'm curious about that. That's the curiosity thing going again. I want to know what I could use it for, what I could do with the ability to fly. So I'm going to make that happen. And I don't know what I'll be able to do with it, but hopefully a year from now it'll be obvious.
Yeah, like it never used to interest me, and then like two things really triggered it. One was I did my season out where Billy lived, actually, in Valseny, and there was the husband and wife team who are both the first people to paraglide off the top of Everest, and I was like, that's cool in itself. Like, I didn't even think about that. And then secondly, just seeing them doing it around there was just like, that is like this. If you're not exposed to it the whole time, it's not something you really get a buzz for. And then like you kind of put two and two together and you watch and you think about the freedom, the expression that you could have through that, and the access. It's so cool.
The access, exactly like you said. It's quite cool. I mean, I think through the kind of peak of summer, there's maybe 2 or 3 months where there's a flying ban on the interesting side of the Chamonix Valley, so people can only take off on the north side of the valley, I guess. But that was lifted, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago. So social media right now is just full of people flying around, doing hike and flies off Mont Blanc, off Mont Blanc du any of those peaks. You can just take the Aiguille Midi up and fly from there, and all of that looks really, really cool. So I think the plan is to get a course and start building all the skills in spring.
Yeah, that's you said about like
summer.
learning the skills yourself through Googling. That's probably not the one, is it?
Yeah, no, it's not. I'm going to take a course for that, but I'd like to. It's funny. People have taught themselves without courses.
I'm sure they have.
At least 2 or 3 people. I met a guy in summer who'd bought a speed wing off Facebook Marketplace secondhand and taught himself to fly.
That's crazy. So
it is possible.
I just had this guy on the podcast, Bernd Marius Rx'd, and he'll be about 4 episodes behind you. He was a speed rider, or he is a speed rider, and he kind of gave it up. One of the reasons why is because of a massive crash where he ended up having his foot amputated. He's now back in the mountains and doing some really cool shit. But maybe there's some others, like some process of learning in there.
It's definitely dangerous sports, and I think I still make mistakes when I'm skiing, or I make mistakes when I'm running, and so I'll have to think very seriously about my decisions, because you can't really afford to make mistakes with air sports like that. And I find it quite easy to always want the next step, like I've said, always wondering what's next. But I think for me, I'll need to be I want to stay on fairly big wings, try and stay away from speed riding, keep things a little bit more sensible, and use it as a tool more than treating it as a fun sport or anything, because then very quickly you get sucked into speed riding, proximity stuff, taking risks, and that's not the reasons I want to get into it. I want to get into it to be able to not have to run down mountains, to be able to get in and out of places. And I just need to remind myself that those are the reasons for doing it.
Yeah, nice, man. There's this feels like poor form to promote another episode on your episode. But I did this episode I had 2. One with Andy Torbett, who's a cave diver and explorer, and it just seemed mental. And like he said about cave diving, that it's completely binary. You go in and you come out fine, or you die, and there's nothing in between. It's like, it sounds rubbish, but his whole thing was like, you have to prepare so well that nothing can go wrong, even if you're on your not even on your B game, like it's like a C game that day. And then I had another one with Tim Howe, the base jumper, and he was just like, there's no such thing as luck. You prepare and you prepare and you prepare. Yeah. Even if there's those 2 episodes, like I think they'd put you in, for anyone learning a new sport, especially a sport like that. I think they're probably 2 good ones to bear in mind.
Yeah, I've not listened to that Tim Howell one, but I will. I think I've not met Tim, but he's an interesting guy, and he's clearly got a good track record of not hurting himself, which, considering how many jumps he's done, shows that he's definitely doing something right, and we could probably all learn something from his thought process and decision making.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I had him on. Anyway, it's been such a pleasure. Actually, there's one more question that I haven't asked that I've been meaning to. What is it about being solo and unsupported that is so attractive to you?
Well, it's just so simple. I mean, that's how it started. There was, I don't know, some random caveman at some point said, "Holy shit, look at that big mountain. I wonder if I can go up there and come back down and still be down for dinner." And it's still the same thing. I just like doing things, and obviously I like doing things in the mountain with other people as well. But for some projects, it's nice just to do it by yourself. No distractions. It's just you're fully in the moment. There's nothing else going on in your head apart from the trail in front of you or the rock in front of you or whatever it is. It's so pure. It's so simple. I just think it's brilliant. For me, that's the best style to do things in. It's not the only style, and there's days where I'd want to do things in another style. Sometimes I want to climb with friends, sometimes I want to do something with my girlfriend, whatever. There's loads of different ways of doing it, and all of them are good. There's no rights or wrongs, but sometimes I like to go in the solo unsupported style, and that's maybe the most rewarding for me.
Nice, man. Nice. Sounds like a dream. Where can people follow you on Instagram? Anywhere else?
Instagram is just my name, Iain Innes. I do have a YouTube channel. I've not posted anything on it for a couple of years, but I'm determined to change that. I'd like to make some more videos.
There's some great stuff on there
this winter. Yeah,
really fun adventures.
Yeah, I was just kind of messing around a couple of years ago. It was coming out of COVID, had a lot of free time. I spent a lot of time watching YouTube videos and decided, well, I'm doing some cool things as well. Why don't I share some of them? Everything was just filmed on my phone and a 360 camera. They were edited by a friend who I think was a marketing student at the time, and now he's working down in London for a marketing company. And he is not a video editor. He doesn't want to be a video editor, as far as I'm aware.
You still forced him to do it.
Yeah, he can't say no. I don't know. He was as excited about the project as I was. He actually edited a video. I filmed a video of my mum running a few years ago and never did anything with the footage. And so my mum's got everything, and I couldn't figure out what to get her for her birthday. And I suddenly remember I had all this footage, and I just sent him a message and said, "Is there any chance you can edit all this footage together? Maybe like a Danny McGaskill style video, that kind of like older music and everything." And he was like, "Yeah, of course." He wanted to learn how to lead climb. He hadn't been lead climbing before, so the deal was I'd take him through the basics of lead climbing, and he'd edit this video for me. And he said, "When's your birthday?" And I said, "Oh, it's on Monday," and this was Friday night at the time. So
very kind.
He had 2 days to do it, and he did it. He smashed it. So that's a guy called Robbie Tye. I'll definitely work with him again, and he probably doesn't want to edit my videos, but
so if anyone wants to guilt someone into some free video editing, hit Robbie up.
Yeah, he's your guy. That's my plan.
Yeah, good man. Thank you for joining me, dude. Real pleasure to be chatting.
Thank you.
Join us on a powerful journey with Once We Were Warriors, a documentary that transcends boundaries and speaks to the souls of our veterans. We need your support to turn this vision into a reality. Once We Were Warriors reveals the path to recovery for injured Royal Marines commandos in the French Alps. Produced by former servicemen, it offers the most authentic storytelling. This documentary dives deep into the lives of those who have served, challenging stereotypes and advocating for veterans' care as we approach a decade since the end of combat operations in Afghanistan. But to make this vision a reality, we need your support and your funding. Support us on a crowdfunding campaign at www.oncewewerewarriorsfilm.com to help us make this documentary a reality and give a voice to those who have sacrificed so much. Join us in making a difference. Together, we can rewrite the narrative for our veterans. Once more, that link is www.oncewewewarriorsfilm.com.